Welcome to Eurofins Viracor Clinical Diagnostics Podcast, where I'll be sharing up-to-date scientific advances, key diagnostic testing, and our most recent innovations. We're looking forward to ATC this year in Philadelphia from June 1st through the 5th. We're exhibiting in booth number 300. We launched Transplant Radio in 2022, and today we're revisiting our live stream from last year during ATC in San Diego. Our aim is to connect with transplant professionals at this event while always staying patient-focused. Our interviews aren't limited to any one profession, so whether you're a physician, lab director, transplant coordinator, PharmD, or even the patient, we would love to hear your voice. Follow the links in this podcast description to sign up for your interview. Amplify your influence and tell your story on Transplant Radio.
Good afternoon. Rob and I are here today in San Diego at ATC 2023. My name is Michelle Altrich, and I am the president of Eurofins Viracor. Welcome.
And I'm Rob Harrell. I'm the vice president of sales and marketing at Eurofins Viracor. And it's my privilege today to interview one of my favorite people in the world. And we did this last year and kept it completely professional. And so this year, while we'll talk about the company and also have some very professional conversation, I thought it might be kind of fun to just ask some human interest questions of you, some that I certainly know, but also to begin with a little bit of just a hot round of challenging questions that might get our juices flowing. So if you had the opportunity to buy 4 houses anywhere in the world, where would you buy these 4 houses and why?
Sure. Well, I think to start with the top 2, we have a conflict a lot of the family when we're talking vacations. Do we want to do the mountains or the beach? And so I think in the U.S., probably we would go in the beach, and probably Hawaii or Florida. And then mountains definitely in Wyoming and the Grand Tetons, most beautiful mountain range ever. And then I think we'd get a little further out. We started traveling internationally a little bit this year, and if it was allowed to have a house on the Galapagos Island off the coast of Ecuador, of course that would be awesome. But also really enjoyed Belize. And so those would be great locations. And then, getting really exotic, maybe somewhere in Asia.
No,
just leave it at that.
Somewhere in Asia.
Somewhere in Asia.
No specific places. I heard the beaches in India, there are some that are actually really quite beautiful.
Okay.
I've been to the beaches in the Philippines, and they're amazing. The water there is like no other place. Yeah, so to buy property in Galapagos, you have to be a citizen or married citizen.
Count on one of the kids finding the love of their life down in Ecuador, yes.
Kids. So I did ask Michelle before we started to talk if there was anything off limits, and she said no. So, Michelle, you have 2 kids. Let's say that you had to do this, right? You have to sit them both down and put a baseball bat, a soccer ball, a volleyball, hockey stick, tennis racket, golf club in front of them, all the potential sports. But you have to say to them at the same time, you have to choose one and only one and specialize for the rest of your life. Because that seems to be the way these days, right?
So you mean they have to agree and do the same one, or they each get their own?
Each one
can
have their own.
Okay, well that's good. They very, very rarely agree on anything.
So which would you hope they choose, and what do you think they would actually choose?
Well, it's interesting. So the youngest really just loved dance and gymnastics. So she would not need anything from the table except for maybe some specialized shoes and outfits. My older son, Leo, is a little more complicated. His passion, I know, when he was little was baseball, but baseball gets very competitive in our area very early. And so, more recently, he's been dabbling in a lot of things. So I don't know if I could answer what he would choose. I mean, anything. He tried basketball and wrestling for the first time, and he enjoyed them both. So I don't know if we know what he would pick. He'd be a bit of a wild card.
What was your sport?
I was not athletically inclined. I was more of the book person. But as I've gotten older, I enjoy just running. I mean, not that it happens that I'm not winning any races, but it's a great form of exercise and stress reliever. But I never really had a sport. I was not athletically inclined at all.
But you are definitely working out all the time.
Yes. Yeah. Cardio, staying young, trying to keep healthy, generally through just walk, jog, run, and some variation.
Are you training for anything right now?
I'm not, although ironically yesterday morning, not associated with the meeting at all, but there was a rock and roll marathon, half marathon, and I am at a conference many years ago, ran a half marathon. Not a great combination to do while you're at work.
Although we've heard here today that many people ran the marathon yesterday.
Absolutely, but no, so I take that back. My son and I, so my son does do some running. He's been doing cross country. We're doing a 5K, our local 5K on 4th of July.
Nice.
We don't run together because he's much faster than me, but we start and end.
No, you mentioned that to me too.
That's not fair. So, who is your hero and why? Do you have one?
Yeah, I think it's really my dad. I mean, he passed away in 2014, and he really taught me to work hard and never stop working out what you believe in. And so I think, just that core functional belief has really served me well throughout my career. And, never being afraid to pitch in and just do what needs to be done. It takes a village to make a company successful, and you have to be willing to show that, you're willing to do anything to make the company successful. It really allows more associates to follow that lead. And so I think really it is my dad.
That's awesome. I definitely want to come back to that, especially the hard work and willingness to roll up your sleeves, no matter what level you're at in the organization. But let's roll it all the way back to that hard work ethic. What kind of hard work did your dad do?
Yeah.
And then how did you progress from that place all the way to being the president of an organization?
So I grew up on a dairy farm, and so if anybody knows anything about dairy farming, there is never downtime. The cows have to be milked 2 or on some farms 3 times a day. And so it's very labor intensive. So we had a family farm, and it took the whole family to make a go of it. And so it was, lots of chores to be done at an early age, just contributing. And, it was the way of life. You didn't know any other way, and you did what needed to be done. And you learn just that is how life is. We all need to contribute to be successful. And so, that served us well. I was academically, scientifically inclined, and always had a love for kind of the unknown and helping people. And so I think that's kind of phased in and brought me to where I am today.
So you went off to school, thought you were going to be a MD. Is that true? Okay.
No.
I thought I'd heard the story that way. So.
Started out as an athletic training major.
Okay.
And I don't know how I got there, looking back, but started there, had a great, a lot of it is who you meet along the way and how they influence you. Had a great freshman advisor. She was a nurse, but she really encouraged me to try out everything I wanted to do. So found people for me to shadow, and I probably went through 3 or 4 majors that first year. Really had a drive for research, scientific knowledge, and same thing. I went to Bozeman, Montana, had a summer research program. I was researching water purity, which I, in the end of the day, knew I didn't want to do. But again, asking those questions, experimenting, led me to go to grad school. And so that, then led me to starting R&D and clinical diagnostics.
First R&D job was here?
Was with, back in 2006, laboratory at that time, IBT Laboratories, focused on allergy and immunology testing, trained as an immunologist. and started my first test I worked on developing was around autoimmune chronic urticaria, a test we still perform today. Still enjoy talking with physicians about it. It's really helped that population for now going on 17 years.
So when you came in and you started doing research science, some almost 17 years ago now, did you see yourself being the president of the organization, or how did that evolution happen?
It definitely was a slow evolution along the way. I first started training to be a lab director, and as you stepped into that role with lab director, you have much more client interactions, talking with physicians, so you learn a lot more of the business. And I've always loved math, so looking at the numbers and how to make the business successful. And so it really brought it in, and then again, just always willing to help out with anything. So, we had an absence with a marketing leader, stepping in and leading the marketing team, learning all about that, and always being willing to learn a little bit. So ended up being very well-rounded and really having that strategic vision to always want to look for what's next, what's coming.
So now you're the president of the organization. You always, I was here in 2016. I remember you were directing the laboratory at the time, and I thought, well, here's the scientist that understands the business. What an incredible gift for the organization. And that has been true of a lot of the scientific leadership at this company. So now you're the president. And one of the things I think that everybody recognizes in you is that, yes, you are willing to roll up your sleeves. How are you working to encourage others to do the exact same thing?
Yeah, and it's something I consciously work at, is trying to get better at delegating and give other associates the opportunities, like I had opportunities to learn and grow. Always being a resource if they feel like they need one. But really trying to take a good step back, allowing them to succeed and celebrate that. If they fail, work with them on, what to change, what to do better, or if you see things starting to go off the rails, getting them back on with guidance and mentorship, and really trying to develop that next level of leaders, because there always has to be somebody next in line.
It is the real art of leadership is to make other leaders, right? And you do such a wonderful job of it.
Well, thank you.
We're incredibly thankful for that. In fact, one of the things that we talk about as leaders when you're probably not around in these conversations, who is a level 5 leader in the organization, and that is this strong sense of will, yet tempered with a distinct humility, and you give that to us, which encourages us then to, we feel empowered to make decisions, to even be bold at times, and that's a real gift to the organization. So over those almost 17 years, what have you been most proud of when you look at the evolution of the organization, how it's grown and changed and maybe even pivoted or swiveled at times? What were you most proud of? What do you think of this is that moment in time?
Well, I think overall that general theme of innovation, like really taking tests, developing them to truly help physicians. And so that wouldn't be like one moment in time, but ongoing, all the way back to, like I said, the first test, 2006 chronic urticaria, to a couple months ago. We launched the first assay to measure persistence of CAR T cells after, one of the great new innovative therapies for a lot of cancers, leukemias and lymphomas primarily now, but solid tumors in the future, and understanding what's happening in the patient after that infusion happens, so that the physician can really better care for that patient. And so really, and if we go back into 2017 when we launched our CMV T cell assay, again, CMV, one of the most challenging diseases for transplant physicians, because it is one of those viruses that, most of us get as we're children. It never leaves us, and as we go through immunosuppression for various reasons, most notably transplant in this case. It can be very debilitating. And so giving physicians those tools that they need to really improve patient lives, really being mission driven, I think is what I'm continually over and over again proud of.
I love that response. One of the values here is to innovate passionately, right? And if this organization does not out-innovate itself, then somebody is going to out-innovate us. So what in the future here are you now most excited about? So all those things are true. We've gone through and become the biggest infectious disease laboratory in the country, the biggest menu of transplant medicine testing that you could possibly want. Now venturing into even really on the very edge of cancer with CAR-T, even though it's a treatment assay, right? You're just validating the efficacy of treatment. As you think about the next 3 to 5 years and this mission of improving patient lives, what are you really eager to see that we bring to bear on truly doing that, improving patient lives?
Well, I would say kind of two things. I think growing kind of the family of tests we already have. So, CAR T cells, they are continually improving. So making sure that the assays we can develop kind of are lock and step with those new innovations in CAR T cells. On the viral T cell assays, there are a lot of other viruses that can cause challenges for physicians. Unfortunately, they don't all have great treatments like CMV, but how can we continue to better inform physicians in managing these? But then looking beyond kind of the transplant and infectious disease, saying, are there other disease states that we're just really well positioned, other autoimmune diseases, which are autoimmune or with our immunology expertise. And infectious diseases are, being implicated in a lot of disease states. And so how can we bring that expertise to other conditions is something we're just really starting to look at.
Yeah, it's interesting how these organisms that, like CMV, said we all have, they live inside us, they probably mostly want to cooperate with us. But eventually something goes wrong, they may even encode and become immortal, like EBV has the opportunity to do. And how do we, as a great laboratory company, provide the best answers at the right time in the right way for the right people? Because at the end of this, there's a mom, dad, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, someone that's waiting. So earlier, and then needs treatment, needs something. So earlier today, we were talking with a group of people about working from a place that wasn't about fear, but there's obviously times when you run an organization and you think about the future that there could be something that is concerning. Is there anything in your mind that we as a laboratory company face that we should be concerned about, or are there things that laboratory managers and other organizations are facing that we should all be concerned about?
Well, I think overall there's a lot of focus, particularly here in the United States, just about healthcare cost. And I am concerned that a lot of times where folks look to save money is in the lab, when really it's the lab, I think for the lowest per dollar equivalent, provides the most useful information. And so I think just overall, healthcare economics, is going to continue to be a focus. So we just got to have, our teams armed with the data that shows how critical the data we provide is to that overall patient outcome. And, just with the uncertain economic times, I think in general nothing specific to any one group, but, it's, we are living in, economic downturn, and is that going to turn around? Is it, continuing down? I think, nobody really knows. It's kind of always hindsight is 2020, but I think just watching healthcare economics and making sure that we can stand up for what a great part the lab plays.
How do we as lab leaders affect that? Make sure that when decisions are made at the levels that they're made, The truth of 70% of all treatment decisions are made by the laboratory, and that's 7% of the healthcare cost. How do we make sure that they continue to fund those things that are important?
Well, I think it's, as we talked, I think earlier today, we need to have more comprehensive conversations, because you might spend a little money here in the lab to save money over in pharmacy or save ICU time. And so being able to really look holistically and making sure that we're able to get the right people in the room to understand that. Because yes, lab tests cost money, but they impact so many other different parts of the healthcare system.
Yeah. What were you saying today? Save $8,000 to cost $800,000 later on. And the downstream effect of decisions made to save money in the laboratory can have very deleterious effects, well, in a patient's life, multiple patients' lives, an organization's success even, the value of the laboratory. Generally misunderstood, I think.
Absolutely.
So when you think about all that has transpired over the 17 years that you've been operating in this laboratory, when you think about this company in particular, what do you think it is that makes this company the best, the standout among its peers?
I think it really is our staff. I mean, we have staff that truly believe in our mission, and they're willing to go that extra mile when somebody, a doctor needs something on the weekend, or they don't understand the results and we need to find somebody, like yesterday on Sunday. I mean, I sent a Teams to a couple lab people, and I was like, hey, might not hear to them till Monday, I'm not sure, Sunday afternoon. 10 minutes later, they were both on Teams and had responses. And so I think just really dedicated associates that truly believe in the mission of improving patient lives, one test at a time.
And I agree. I mean, I think we talked about it last year. I've mentioned it here. I came back for that very reason. There's never been an organization I've ever been at, to include the military, which definitely has some certain esprit de corps that has this focus on the mission that everybody really believes in. You were just sharing with some folks from one of our partner companies about how someone else that was on the scientific team that they knew had gone and come back. And I've rehired several people here, and people want to be in this organization. So what is it about the future of this organization that you think, that's great, right? We have this great culture and we love it. How does bringing people back, you think, reinvest in the future of the organization? How does it have an impact? Well,
I think it helps current associates get through rough patches, because let's be honest, we're all going to have them. There are days I go home and I hate my job, and we're all going to have them. It's life. But I think seeing the fact that, when people make that really big decision to leave and then are like, and then come back, I think it helps people through those hard patches to say, we're doing great things. We can get through the hard patches.
Yeah, truth. And we are doing great things. I wake up every day. I haven't yet had a day that I didn't love being here, mostly because of the people. The tests are awesome. We have no equal in the marketplace. I'm very confident of that. That, for me, makes the other part of the work that I really love, which is the development of that team, that much easier, because I don't have to worry about, do we have the right products and are they promoted in the right ways. It really gets to be all about the people.
Absolutely, yeah.
So in closing, is there anything else that you would like to share with the folks who may be listening to this when we finally do share this recording out on the interwebs?
Yeah, well, I think one ATC great meeting this year. It really feels, kind of getting back to the pre-COVID, great collaborations. I think a really bright future. It's been great hearing more of the patient stories, some great, really patient, because at the end of the day, that is really what it's about. And so, just reaching out. Again, we're always willing to talk to, physicians if they've got ideas. Innovation is what drives us. You know, we have if they've got an idea, we're happy to talk with them and run with it. So just say, reach out.
Innovation, innovate passionately, and some of the best innovation that we've ever had in this organization were not always our ideas, but the ideas of the physicians and clinicians that we serve, that they knew would be good for the patients that they serve, and they just couldn't operationalize it in the ways that we might be able to.
Yep.
So thank you so much, Michelle, for your time today. Let me ask you a few very silly questions.
Great. Yeah.
I have one more very silly question
Okay.
for you. So there was an article in the news this morning that the world has run out of a particular color, and a particular color of paint, by the way.
Okay.
And what was that color and why?
True story or something?
It's a true story.
True story made up.
Yeah, it's a true story.
Huh. Well, if you're going to run out of something, it's got to be one of the three ones, right? What is it? Yellow, red, and blue, right?
So this is actually a combination.
Oh, well then, okay. How can you run out of it? Because you can always make more.
Because when you manufacture these paints, they get consumed. And actually, long story short, there was a big freeze in Texas last year that destroyed the majority of this one particular paint color. But this weekend...
Probably red or blue if it's in Texas. No, you said it was a combination?
Yeah, it's a combination color. So not a basic, somewhere on the color wheel.
Yeah. And it was in...
There was a movie released this weekend that was responsible for the consumption of this color. Pink. So the Barbie movie was released this weekend.
Oh, was it really?
And they consumed every pink that was available in the United States. Completely.
To make the movie?
To make the movie. Yeah.
Really? Oh, and so I took my daughter to The Little Mermaid last weekend, I think is when or whenever it opened. I think it was last weekend. And they showed the preview for that Barbie movie, and I believe it, because there was a lot of pink on that screen.
They were very particular.
And it was very pink.
It's kind of funny. Well, thank you again.
All right. It's been great.
Great insight. Personally, thank you for letting me come back here. Thankful for the way that you lead this organization. Excited about not only what we're learning here, but what we know we're doing to craft a great, big, bright, and beautiful future. Always with that mission in mind, improving patient lives.
Yeah, the road ahead looks promising. It looks bright. It'll be a lot of fun.
All right. Have a wonderful day. Take care.
Yep, you too.
And now enjoy part 2 of our interview series.
Good afternoon. This is Kevin Foth recording at ATC Transplant Radio. Here it is June 4th, 2023. I have Brittany Rock sitting down with me for a few minutes to talk a little bit about her experiences in transplantation and other exciting things. So welcome, Brittany. Glad to have you on the show. And we'll take a second here if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Brittany, what you do, what excites you about the transplant arena, areas of expertise, anything, abstracts you've been to, any talks or symposiums that you've experienced so far here on pretty much primarily the opening day of ATC 2023. So I'll turn it over to you, Brittany.
All right. Hi. Yeah. Thanks so much. Really happy to be chatting with you today. I am Brittany Rock. I'm a research fellow at University of Southern California in Dr. Juliet Amamali's lab. I've been in the lab for 3 years, and I'm also a general surgery resident on track and planning to become a transplant surgeon. So here at the meeting, I have definitely been going to a lot of talks related to single cell analysis, which is what we do primarily in our lab. And I think it's a really exciting time for single cell, both like RNA sequencing, proteomics, multiomics, like that's really our interest and focus. And I'm really excited to see that this year at the meeting. It has definitely been a big central focus in the meeting, and I think it's definitely where a lot of advancements are going to come from in the next maybe 5 to 10 years. It's really exciting.
You said you're going to go into the surgical field. Are you going to be like a general surgeon? And what? And you going to specialize in transplantation, or have you even thought that far?
Yeah. So it's definitely something where I feel like as my career progresses, it will become a little bit more clear. But I'm a general surgery resident right now, but I plan to apply to transplant surgery fellowship. So I definitely will want to have a transplant focus, and I'm really interested in liver transplantation.
Okay.
As a lot of us are who are interested in transplant fellowship. I think the liver is really just such an interesting and fun organ, both to study and clinically to take care of the patients. It's just so rewarding. So yeah, that's kind of where I see myself, but also, as time progresses, I still have 5 years of training, so
Yeah.
it'll make itself more clear.
It seems like a long time, but it's going to fly by.
Absolutely, yeah.
And pretty soon you're going to look back and go, whoa, I did what?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, the past even 3 years in the lab has just been like the blink of an eye almost, but I think we've accomplished a lot, and, we've studied a lot of, we've done single cell RNA sequencing, we've done this new technique called imaging mass cytometry, which, to answer your question about some of the clinical innovations, I think it's a technique that hasn't been used a lot in transplant. It's been used more in the sort of cancer research space, but I think we can apply it clinically and in clinical trials to study, responses to therapy in our transplant patients too.
So are you talking about responses to therapy to immunosuppressants or to other analogs used in the transplant space?
It could be any therapeutic and any clinical trial, and if you have a biopsy, if you have a tissue specimen, it's basically a spatial proteomics platform. So you can really get more rich data out of that biopsy instead of just looking at the standard pathology, like histology slides and the immunohistochemistry. You can really get single cell phenotypes, and we're applying it to rejection right now. So we're studying mechanisms of rejection using this technique. We're studying pediatric acute liver failure, which I am giving a talk on tomorrow morning in the plenary session.
Well, go ahead and promote yourself a little bit more about that. Tell us, what room you're going to be in, what area you're going to be in, what time your talk's going to be about, the title, and what people can expect.
Absolutely, sure. So it's Monday morning, the 8:15 plenary session. So it'll be in the main, I think it's hall, the first floor, area C, and it'll be the main plenary session. So there shouldn't be much else going on at that time. And I'll be the first talk and talking about these cells we found in pediatric acute liver failure that predict outcomes, that express PD1, which is a exhaustion marker. So these PD1 populations and regulatory T cells in these patients actually predict their survival without needing a liver transplant, which is super interesting that we found that. We weren't expecting that at all. But using this platform, we found, and we just applied our imaging mass cytometry pipeline that we had been studying rejection with to pediatric acute liver failure, and just these cells kind of popped out as really interesting. And we were able to differentiate based on outcomes of survival with native liver versus needing a liver transplant. So that was really exciting, and we're super excited to share it tomorrow.
Well, that's fantastic. I guess you kind of piqued my interest because you started talking a bit more about pediatrics, and your eyes just lit up.
Really?
Is that something you're planning to maybe specialize in pediatric liver transplantation, or just the adult population liver transplantation, or are you going to figure it out as you go over the next 5 years?
I think I'm going to figure it out as I go. It's interesting you notice that. I really do think I am more interested in pediatric liver transplant, and that's like my ultimate dream. But I do recognize that there are very, very few jobs in the country. There aren't as many pediatric liver transplants, fortunately, happening as adults, but it is an area of research that I certainly love, and I think clinically I've always been interested on the pediatric side as well.
Right.
So it's like I will play it by ear, but yeah.
No, that's fantastic, and I mean, I've been in this business for a long time in healthcare diagnostics and like that, and pediatrics has always kind of been a little forgotten about.
Yes.
But we're seeing more and more awareness and the importance of it. Hopefully it'll get the funding that
Yes.
other specialties and other areas of interest haven't gotten.
Yeah.
But I do think it's really truly needed. And I don't know if I can toot not my own horn, but my city's own horn. We actually have a group that's going on this weekend in Kansas City. It's called the Big Slick Tournament. I don't know if you've heard of it or not.
I haven't. No.
Basically, it was started by Kansas City has a lot of stars, movie, television, and whatever, and they're from the area. And what they did is about 5 years ago they partnered with Children's Mercy Hospital, which is in the Kansas City area. And they wanted to raise money for childhood cancer and other therapies and such. And they're like, if we raise $50,000, we're going to be doing great. Well, over that 5 years, they've raised in excess of $17 million that has gone just to that Children's Mercy Hospital for everything they do and taking care of the children with a wide variety of diseases and such. And, it's gotten to the point now where, initially they were begging people to, please come, present, be present. We want the star power to draw in folks to participate. Now they're going, we're full. Maybe next year we can get you to do it and such. So, I think they saw pretty much what you're talking about too, is that there's a true need to fund and to advance, the understanding of pediatric care across a wide variety of diseases. Transplantation is a huge one for them.
Absolutely, yeah. That's amazing. That's and it kind of shows like when you start kind of an effort like that where there is a need, it can kind of like snowball into something really positive and amazing. So that's fantastic.
Excellent. So what inspired you to start focusing on this area of the transplantation community? What was your sparks? Did you have a mentor that really, looked at you and said, I think you'd be great doing this? Or was this a self-realization of, this is what I really want to do and I'm going to make it happen?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. So when I was in my first couple of years of residency and deciding to do research, I knew I wanted to do transplant research, and I was wanting to find something where I could do some basic science. But there aren't a lot of labs, basic science labs, that do liver transplant research in the country. And so I was kind of having a difficult time, but I talked to some mentors, and I got connected with another mentor who finally got me in contact with my current mentor, Dr. Julia Amamali. And I have to credit her with a lot of the, absolutely the design of our experiments and the coming up with the vision. And so she offered me a position in her lab, and I think it was just like meant to be. It just like kind of happened by chance, but it was amazing, and it kind of, that sparked my interest, and like her vision kind of, it inspired me to think more about pediatric transplant, which I hadn't thought about a lot, and also it was a great fit, and so it's been working out. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, you're getting your feet wet, you're understanding this, you're getting into it a little bit deeper. So some of maybe the biggest challenges you've had or roadblocks you've had to overcome and saying, I think if we could do this, it'd be fantastic, but the technology's not out there. Or, it's a true future state that we're going to need to get more information and data on. Anything like that you've ran into, and have you overcome them? Did you go around them, or did you just bust right through them and say, we're going to do this?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because in science there's always going to be unexpected roadblocks no matter what, and sometimes it's like more than you even anticipate. But we have spent probably almost half of my research time trying to optimize and make our imaging mass cytometry platform work and be robust and be reproducible technique. So when we started, there were issues with some cells not looking quite right and like all these different things. So there were little problems that we kind of took on one at a time, and we kind of busted through them, and then we ended up with a final analysis pipeline that we were very proud of, and like we're really happy to show and share it. You know, and we've tried some other techniques too, and not all of the techniques work very well, or, you know, especially when we do like single cell RNA sequencing, sometimes we had specimens from patients, but the RNA quality was too low, and like you can't really go back in time and be like, you know, put the RNA back together. And so there are limitations with certain techniques that's just been a learning process, and I think that's part of doing science. But yeah, you know, a little bit of we can bust through the problems and problem solve, and then a little bit of we have to go back to the drawing board and kind of restart and replan. So,
right.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I'm a scientist as well, and that's one of the things that excites me. Is like, okay, I can do it this way, but if you maybe tweak this a little bit, do this a little bit differently, you can get, you know, a more sensitive, more specific assay, an assay that perhaps runs quicker, gives you to an endpoint faster, but still giving you, you know, good, accurate, valid results out there. So we talked a little bit about it, you know, in funding and such for the transplant community and pediatrics. What other issues do you see or opportunities there are in the transplant community?
What issues are there in the transplant community?
Well, I mean, I'll throw it out there. You know, the elephant in the room is the availability of donors.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You know, whether it's a deceased donor or a living donor, especially, you know, liver transplantation, you can do a lobe transplant to a pediatric, which is starting to come on a little bit more prominently, but, you know, I don't think people are fully aware of that. You know, you think back, you know, it's like, well, it was always a deceased donor that provided the organ, you know, for the transplantation, but you know, you can give one kidney, and you know the donor still has a kidney. You can give a lobe of a liver. You can give, you know, one lung or even a lobe of a lung to you know, pediatrics and like that. And, you know, other things along on that line that you can think of.
In pediatrics, are you asking in pediatrics?
Pediatrics and in general.
Yeah. I mean, I think with pediatrics, you know, one issue is the population is a bit smaller than the adult population. You know, we have about, I think it's about around 1,000 transplants, pediatric transplants, liver transplants per year in the United States. So with the small sample size, and we're trying to do clinical studies and outcomes and whatnot, it makes it pretty challenging compared to the adult group. Definitely donors, you know, allocation in pediatrics, they've actually been disadvantaged a little bit historically, and they've started modifying the allocation system. I'm not super familiar with the details, but I know that, you know, there are optimizations that need to be made in terms of how organs are allocated, especially to children, especially because you can give them a left lateral segment and then give the remaining triseg to an adult and whatnot. So utilization needs to be improved, and just, yeah, overall, I think that is a major issue.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm going to open it up and say, is there anything else that you'd like to say, anything that you want to talk about your research, your plans, ideation of how you'd like to see it, a little bit more on, you know, ideation on how you'd like to see the pediatric transplantation proceed in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think people, research groups, you know, focusing on pediatrics, I think it's a really great and rewarding sort of field, and I think applying the single cell and the omics and the machine learning modeling to predict diseases and study the mechanisms, I think that is just a super rewarding field. I think we, as a transplant community, we should continue to be thinking about these multi-omic techniques and applying them to diseases so we can understand them more, and the more we understand, the better we can treat our patients. And my goal in my career is to take this, you know, basic science bench work that we're doing and make sure that it finds its way into patient care, you know, and make sure that you know, these innovations and these wonderful discoveries that we're seeing here at these meetings, they benefit our patients, because we're spending a lot of money on it, right? So we want there to be that impact too. Yeah.
Okay, great. I appreciate your time, but I got a couple more questions for
sure.
you. So do you have a Twitter website or anything like this where you post your information out there that people who are interested from what you've said, they can connect with Brittany and Brittany Rock and say, hey, want more information, or hey, have you thought about this or that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Share your social media profile for everybody.
Okay. Yes, I am on Twitter. I'm trying to be a little bit more active on it and share and retweet. So, yeah, I'm at BRockMD. That's BROCQUEMD. And yeah, absolutely. If people want to reach out and discuss science and whatnot, that would be amazing. I'll try to be a little bit more active and sharing things and whatnot. I mostly share stuff from our research group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have an active presence on Twitter, and there is just a enormous medical community out there on Twitter, sharing ideas, sharing successes, co-promoting each other, which is fantastic. So, look Brittany up on Twitter, see what she's got. I'm sure she'd be happy to answer that. And then probably really the most important question of this segment. You've been here for a couple of days at the conference.
Yep.
What's the best thing you've had to eat so far?
Oh, geez. Actually, the best thing I've had to eat so far. Well, I went to the Eurofins dinner last night, actually.
The Taste of San Diego.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And they had tacos, and one of them was a prime rib taco. That was really, really good. Yeah.
Okay. And I have to ask, too, because we had a lot of fun with it. Did you try any of the signature cocktails?
Yes, I tried the strawberry margarita. Well, was that...
We had an Insight margarita.
Oh, okay.
And which is kind of a standard margarita. I heard that went over pretty well.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get an idea of what people enjoyed from it. Thank you
Yeah, it
for
was great.
participating in that. Really appreciate you spending a few minutes with me today. I hope you have a great rest of the conference.
All right, sounds great. Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
greatly appreciate it, Brittany. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next up is part 3 of our interview series.
Good morning, this is Kevin Foth, and I have Tiffany Shee joining me this morning to talk about her experiences here at ATC 2023, sunny San Diego, California. Tiffany, if you'd like to introduce yourself, tell the listening audience a little bit about yourself, what you do, what about transplantation excites you, your area of expertise, and anything else you want to talk about as for our listening audience's consumption.
Absolutely. So hi everyone, I'm Tiffany. I am a third-year graduate student in the MD-PhD program at the University of Cincinnati. I work in the lab of David Hildeman, and a lot of my thesis work is looking at renal allograft rejection, and we use single-cell RNA sequencing plus TCR sequencing in order to really take a closer look at the CD8 T cells in the rejecting allograft. So what we've been able to find is that we see pretty limited clonal expansion of these cells, and they're able to actually shift their gene expression in response to traditional anti-rejection therapies to stay in the graft. And even more impressively, I know this is something that Eurofins is probably interested in as well, but we actually see at histological resolution of rejection, there are still expanded clonotypes present in the graft. And that predisposes the patient to a subsequent rejection episode in the future potentially. So it's really imperative for us to understand when we need to stop treating rejection and when rejection is truly resolved, because there's potential that looking at it through histological lens is probably not enough.
Okay, and histologically you mean like through a biopsy sample or like that?
Yeah, through like a biopsy sample where they potentially stain for like H&E or PAS and just look for, they like grade it through like BAMF rejection grades, stuff like that.
I don't know if you noticed,
Okay,
when you first
very
typed it in,
good.
because it was
So
it doesn't know the wording.
that's really intriguing. I mean, so you're talking about the technology and the advances of technology. Do you see that as a benefit to what you're trying to do as you're getting into the transplantation arena? And I mean, what are your thoughts on where it is now, and what would you like to see in the future? What kind of tools or technology testing do you think is currently maybe missing in the field, or is in its infant state very early that you hope to see progress to full-blown applicability in the transplant community?
Yeah, so the technology we use is quite challenging to analyze, to do, but the beauty of it is that it's an unsupervised analysis. So what that means is you're not biased against previous studies. You're not using a test database and then trying to validate your data based on that. And you're looking at genes through just like a lens in general versus like having to select certain genes, which you would need to do with other technologies. So this really gives us an avenue to open up new findings because we're not biased against what we theoretically already know.
So you guys are using, use the industry buzzwords, metagenomics, AI, and all that to, compare that patient sample against an established broad range database of information that allows you then to really zero in and focus as to what may be causing the rejection or what may be truly causing the insult to the organ post donation.
So the beauty is we don't need to do that.
Okay.
We actually, because we use the unsupervised approach, we don't need to qualify it against some other database. So you get a list of thousands and thousands of genes from the patient, and you get to make those choices. You get to see pathways that you maybe hadn't predicted before, versus if you used other technologies, you would have to make that prediction before. You would have to select certain markers or certain pathways. So in our case, we're really trying to move the field forward because we're able to find out new information using this approach. Okay.
And as you said before, you're using assays from Eurofins Transplant Diagnostics to help you with this. Do you have any, self-developed or laboratory-developed testing at Cincinnati that you're using for this?
So we haven't used any of the Eurofins technologies.
Yes.
So,
right?
Yes, yeah. But we are interested in, I think, some of the things that Eurofins is also interested in. So namely, you mentioned that you guys have like CMV tests, stuff like that. So using our technologies, using single-cell technology and TCR sequencing technology, we actually have this specific sequence of individual T cells that are present within the graft. And we've been able to validate their alloreactivity by transfecting these sequences into a cell line that doesn't have its own TCR. So now we have this cell line that has specific TCR sequences of our choice. So we have about 20 or so. And what we're able to do is, because since we have donor and recipient blood from the time of transplant, we're able to then do a co-culture assay with the JERCAT cells versus, say, donor PBMCs, and look for production of IL-2 using ELISA assays. So production of IL-2 would signify T-cell activation, and that would confer alloreactivity. So on the flip side, we can also look at cross-reactivity of these allo-specific T cells to viral antigens by taking recipient PBMCs and pulsing them with viral peptides and looking again for the same assay. And the idea would be, potentially there are these memory viral-specific T cells that could potentially cross-react to alloantigens and thereby driving rejection events.
Very good. You start talking like that, I don't know if you saw me, I light up, because that's what I do within the Eurofins FireCore group, is we go out and we look for this type of new technology, we look at the applicability, the scalability, and the usability in the clinical space. It's like, give you a little foreshadowing. That's some of the stuff we're doing now. And it's not today for us, but it sounds like it's today for you, which is fantastic for the population that you service. So you mentioned earlier off the air that you're not only an MD student, but you're a PhD student too.
Correct.
Give the audience an idea, walk us down that pathway. What made you decide to become an overachiever? I don't know if that's the right word, but what passion, what drove you to pursue this field?
Well, so I've wanted to be a doctor all my life. My grandma was a doctor and back in China, and just seeing her and her interaction with patients really just made me want to help people in the same way. So medicine has always been something I wanted to do. And as some of the audience may know, with medicine comes research. So as an undergrad, I actually I started getting into research because I was like, well, I need to do this to get into medical school. And then I did the research, and I was like, my gosh, I love this. And I did some research in my undergrad at Penn State University. I looked at T cells there, and I was fortunate enough to get a summer internship at Cincinnati Children's as an undergrad, working in a liver research lab, but looking at patients with cholestatic liver disease, which doesn't really have a cure, and thereby they needed a transplant in order to actually cure the disease. So I did that for 2 summers, and I actually went back full-time for a full research position. And I did that because I've heard about MD PhDs and heard about how long of a path it is and how grueling it can be, and I was like, well, I better make sure that I can actually do this full-time.
Right.
And turns out I could.
Excellent. I mean, I applaud you for your dedication. That's phenomenal, and truly, I think the co-doctor degree is very important, because it gets you a little bit more into the appreciation of what medicine can do for people, but then the ability to talk to them about how it can improve their lives.
That's right.
Going forward and such. So what motivates you in your current research right now?
I think thinking about the new science, as cheesy and nerdy as that sounds, the things that we can do based on the things that we've found already, specifically in our project, everything that I've talked to you a little bit about actually was just published in JCI, so that's super exciting for me, but there's always next steps to do.
Go ahead, promote the article.
So we just published our work. We looked at 13 patients, 3 with no rejection and 10 with rejection. Of the 10 with rejection, we looked at 4 patients under tacrolimus, rejecting under tacrolimus, 3 under belatacept, and 3 under iscalimab. So with all these 13 patients, we were able to look at not just immune cells, but also kidney cells, which is something one of our fellows is working on right now. But again, I've really focused my work on the CD8 T cells. And we've been able to see, again, limited clonal expansion, and then clonal expansion to be limited over time, but also persistent clonotypes over time. And one of the things that we are also able to see, which is, I think, one of the most powerful things, is there are differences in the expanded clonotypes based on immunosuppression therapy. So this is something that I think the medical community has known empirically already, that you can't treat rejection the same under different immunosuppressive therapies, but our study shows there are specific gene changes across these therapies that help make sense of what that is. So we believe that there's a lot more work to be done, of course, but this study, I think, is really, I hope, going to be seminal in the field.
Excellent. So the ATC conference has been going on for a couple of days now, and we've got a pretty expansive Congress Hall here. A lot of fantastic posters. I haven't gotten to see all of them that I wanted to see because I've been talking to fantastic people like you, and there's some great stuff out there. Is there any posters or any thing that you've seen, maybe seminars you've attended that have really made you sit down and go, wow?
Yeah, so I will just do a little bit of self-promotion again. So I did give a plenary talk yesterday, and I will be going on to the People's Choice Award on Wednesday. So if anybody wants to join that would be great. I also have an impact session tomorrow, I guess, on TCR sequencing. So a lot of the talks that I've been going to really do focus on T cells. I'm working with a different fellow in our lab looking at mouse models of cross-reactivity. So we have a mouse model that we have challenged with the viral antigen and developed a memory response and looked at those memory T cells response to a transplant alloantigen. So I really enjoyed yesterday's. There was a focus in transplantation talk on memory T cells, effector T cells, and exhausted T cells. That falls really in line with the things that we're interested in our studies, namely looking at what is the functionality of these T cells over time, and how do we modulate their function.
Excellent. So it sounds like I've missed out on a lot. Now I'm going, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't have done this, but I enjoy talking to people. So thank you for your time. Really appreciate that. Going back to the process where you're at. So how long do you have before you complete your program?
So I have about a year left in my PhD, and then I go back for 2 more years in medical school.
Okay. It's not that far. Time's going to just fly by.
Absolutely.
So what have been maybe some of the biggest challenges you faced in doing this type of program? And maybe some considerations or inside information that others that might be pursuing an MD PhD program, words of wisdom to help them make the determination. Yes, I am fully committed and dedicated to doing that, or maybe one doctorate degree is good enough for me.
Yeah, so that's always the challenge, and I think a lot of MD PhD students like to joke that they've made a mistake in choosing this, because it is really hard. Halfway through the program, all of your MD friends leave and become doctors, and they get to take care of patients. They get to pursue the passions that they've wanted to do for forever, probably. And you see them thrive, and you're stuck in the lab and nothing works, and you're just beating yourself against the wall, and you're like, why doesn't my experiment work? So at times like that, it is really challenging, and it does make people think about the choices that they've made. But I think that I take it from a different point of view, where this is also my passion. I think that the research really does fall hand in hand with the medicine for me. And you have to live your life as an MD PhD. It is a very, very long program, but you go out to dinner with friends, you still enjoy your hobbies, you pace yourself, and honestly, the research is a little bit of a nice break from the sprint that is medical school. Not that research is easy at all,
right?
But it is a time where I think a lot of students are able to take a step back and really evaluate what their priorities are. I've known a lot of people who change their mind about what field they want to go in, and they never would have had that time to explore otherwise.
Right.
People get married, people have kids, people, see their family more, people get to travel a little bit more. So I think that you have to have a passion for research, of course, in order to make such a choice.
Certainly. I mean, I'm not a runner, but Matt Kavanaugh, a gentleman who I interviewed before you, he is a marathoner. And really, that's what he was talking about. It's a marathon. It's not a 1K, a 5K, 10K. It's 26.2 miles,
Right.
and that's really the program the road you're going down. And you have the mindset, the mentality. This is what I want to do. This is the steps I need to get there. And one thing that I notice is just as you're talking about this, your face and your eyes have just really lit up. So to me, I see the passion, the dedication, and the determination to get there. Cross that finish line. You're not quite there yet, but that finish line is just around the corner, which is phenomenal. I know you're going to do well.
Thank you.
Your colleagues that have graduated, become MDs previous to you receiving your degree, they're going to be out in the field, but you're going to be out in that same field soon, and still remain colleagues throughout the life, and maybe you're going to hold the over them a little bit and go, you're just an MD. I'm an MD PhD. With that, let's see. I'm just kind of running through my questions to find out.
Let's start.
We'll talk a little bit. I guess. Do you have on you? What social media presence do you have, or does your group have out there? You want to promote it here on the broadcast so you can get more followers? Or like that. I think it's very intriguing with what you're doing, your team's doing, and such. Anything like that to share? Or?
Yeah, the easiest platform to find me on is probably Twitter. My handle is She Sutures, SHI Sutures. As you can tell, I want to be a surgeon. So a lot of my academic stuff will be put on there.
Perfect. So probably the most difficult question of this interview as we wind down. We've been in San Diego for about 3 days now, enjoying the beautiful weather, the conference hall and like that, but more importantly, has there been any special place that you found to eat that just had food that you'd like to maybe give a ninja promotional shout out to?
I'm a pretty big foodie, but I'm not picky. So I love Japanese food. There's bunch of good Japanese places. If you're interested in like sashimi sushi, or if you're interested in ramen, I don't think you can really go wrong here in a place like San Diego. I can't remember the names off the top of my head though.
Okay, but you've given people some specific food items to look at and to hunt down while they're here in the neighborhood. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up for the day?
No, if anyone has any further questions, whether on our work or anything, please feel free to reach out. Like I said, through Twitter is probably the best option for me.
She surgeon.
I
messed it up.
She sutures.
Sutures, because you want to become a surgeon. Yeah. Sorry. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you, Kevin.
And reach out to Miss Tiffany if you have questions. You want more information on what's driven her to this passion of hers, and also follow her as she advances through her career and becomes a world-renowned surgeon in the transplant community.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Up next, part 4 of our interview series.
Good morning, this is Kevin Foth. Welcome to Transplant Radio at the ATC Conference 2023 in sunny San Diego. This morning I got Matt Cavanaugh joining us as our first interviewee of the day. Matt's got some really unique stories to tell about his experiences, so stay tuned and we'll get Matt's story here in just a second. Let me just ask you a few questions, get to know you so our audience can get to know you, Matt. First, really greatly appreciate you making this time. Why don't you give us a little bit history about yourself?
Yeah.
Your experience in the transplant community, important things to you, and like that. If you've got an area of expertise with the transplant, let us know.
It's less about expertise and a little bit more about having skin in the game. So I'm a living donor. I'm a non-directed donor. I donated in September of 2021, and it was truly one of the best things I've ever done in my life. I donated at Walter Reed. Okay. My kidney boarded a plane and went to someone in Seattle, and then kick-started a chain organized by the National Kidney Registry that helped an additional 7 folks, and the last kidney came back to a service person at Walter Reed. I was then in the United States Army, so for me that was very meaningful, and that actually was the big bang that got me involved and why I'm here at this transplant conference right now. I'm now after my military retirement, I'm the president and the CEO of the National Kidney Donation Organization.
Very good. What branch of the service were you in, Matt?
I was in the Army.
Okay.
Yeah, for 25 years.
Not going to hold that against you. I'm sure you've heard that a lot.
I have, and it's tough to say in the Navy town. This town is a beautiful one, but I can detect the faint smell of the Navy everywhere I go around here. Most people think of it as a beautiful sea smell, but I think of it as the whiff of the Navy.
That's funny.
It's our organization, just very briefly, we have a staff of 50 donors, like myself, that also serve as mentors for people that are considering living kidney donation. And you can imagine it's a very simple concept, but it's very powerful. When someone says, I'm interested in donating my kidney, typically they don't know anybody that's done it before. I certainly didn't. And they have a lot of basic questions, and it's really powerful for them to connect with someone who's done it before, because that gives them a sense of confidence, and they can even see what success looks like.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so we've grown rapidly. We've had conversations with over 26,000 people considering living kidney donation. This year we're on pace to mentor 600 donations, which is a little bit over 10% of the total number of living donors in the country. And again, like for so many people like myself, when you donate a kidney, for a lot of us, we want to continue to give in some way, even if physically we can't do it anymore. And to talk to others about donating is really meaningful because it's a way of continuing to serve and to give and to help. The last thing I think is worth mentioning, when you have two different buckets of people that are considering living kidney donation, one bucket talks to a mentor of ours, and then the other bucket doesn't speak with one of our mentors. The people that talk to our mentors, it roughly triples the propensity for donation. So, and it's not because we're brilliant orators. It's because people feel more confidence as social animals as we are, feel more confidence in the process when they talk to someone who's done it and it worked out well.
Right, and that is such a paradigm shift in the whole donation atmosphere that we're in. Most people, you go to the DMV, you get your new driver's license. It's like, do you want to be an organ donor? Oh yeah, it's a simple checkbox. I don't have to worry about that until something happens. Yeah. But it's a true conscious decision to say, you know what? I can get by on one kidney. There's somebody out there that really needs a kidney to get by, and to make that leap to say, why am I not doing this?
Yeah.
And before it's always been deceased donors for transplants. You don't think about that. Yeah. Living donors is such a huge step and such a gracious giving way back to those in need. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
And thank you for your story. It's really profound and I think impactful.
That's one other aspect of our organization. So, like I mentioned, we mentor people, right? We talk to people that are considering living kidney donation. But one of the other things that we do, and we're really excited this year in particular to expand, is outreach efforts. For example, we have an initiative called 1K12, one kidney, 12 marathons. So myself and another runner are running 12 marathons this year.
And you ran the marathon yesterday here in San Diego.
Just yesterday. I'm happy to say that I won my age group, and I finished in the top 20 or so out of 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 runners. And I say all that, first of all, as a native Minnesotan, we don't brag about ourselves, but I say it because I recognize that the number one question people have about kidney donation is, what will my physical life be like post-donation? Will I be degraded? Will I just sort of get by? And the reality is, for so many of us, first of all, everybody in this conference hall, there's more medical degrees within arm's length right now than I've probably ever been in close proximity to. But everyone in this room knows that we all survive quite well with one kidney, that 1 out of something like 7,000 people already they were born with one kidney and they don't even know it.
Right.
But it's really powerful to be able to demonstrate to people, hey, look, your body is just as tough, just as resilient, and there's no ceiling on what you can do physically after you donate. And it's really gratifying. So, San Diego, just yesterday we ran the marathon, myself and my partner, Hillary Bowdy. So it's one man, one woman. We're both doing 12 this year. This was our 6th marathon of the year.
Excellent.
So we started in Atlanta, Los Angeles, Salt Lake City, Cincinnati, Denver, and now San Diego. And, it's really wonderful for us as an opportunity because, frankly, it can be awkward to talk to people about living kidney donation because you never want it to come off as, I want your kidney,
right.
But what we find is much more effective and impactful, what we find is more impactful to go to things and places like races, like the San Diego Marathon here, where there were 35,000 people running over the course of the 5K, the half marathon, and the marathon. And those are healthy people. Those are people who have a little bit of disposable income to be able to go do a race like that. Those are people who have trained to finish a half marathon or a full marathon, and so are more likely, on balance, to get through the process of donation. And we talk to them and we say, hey, look, this is an option out there for you. You can donate a kidney, you can save someone's life, and you can go right back to doing the things that you do right now.
Right.
And we find that every now and again we get somebody out of those thousands and thousands of runners who says, yeah, I'm interested in doing that. You know, one of the things that I'm most proud of, frankly, is a friend of mine that's a runner. She's a little bit older than I am, but she's at a stage of life where she said, you know what, Matt, I've seen that you donated and you've gone on to do plenty of cool races and runs and stuff. That's important to me, and that's been something that's helped me make my decision. And so she's actually scheduled for a non-directed donation at Centura Porter in November this year. So,
wonderful. Yeah, and I think that's really important. The people you said, there's two schools of thought. You know, collectively, people have said, "Oh, I've thought about doing a donation, living donor donation." You've got some that pursue talking to advocates like yourself that have been through the experience, and they realize that, yeah, all those little questions I had, you and your team were able to answer.
Yeah.
Remove the questions, remove the doubts and like this, and that helps them go on. Then you've got the other ones that don't get that information, that advice.
Yeah.
So that they still have those little lingering doubts that may keep them then from going through the process. What types of tools do you have for people considering living donation?
Yeah.
Through your groups and like this, and how can people find out about that information?
Yeah. So along the way, so the initiative is One Kidney, 12 marathons, but in every city we've created sort of a gravity or a magnet for other donors, other living donors to come to those races. So at the Atlanta Marathon, for example, we had, I think, 11 living kidney donors run the marathon alongside of us. And the more the merrier, you know, the bigger the story, frankly, in the local media, you know, because when the local news finds out that there are 11 or a baker's dozen runners in that event that are living donors, you know, they want to get that camera on.
Right.
And in each one of the cities, we've been able to get local media coverage, which is fantastic.
It's kind of self-perpetuating.
Yeah.
And get that message out there.
Because we do want to engage the runners at the expo when they pick up their packets. We're talking to them. But our wider net that we're trying to throw out there is to the local community. And we want them to know that there are thousands of people in their community dying right now of kidney failure, and they can step in and do something about it. And so as a practical matter, when you're doing those sorts of engagements and having quick conversations or a media opportunity, you of course have to do what everybody does, which is build a website, you know, and make it easy for people to get more information. So for us, it's 1k12.org. 1k12.org, and you know, we find that every now and again you hit that, and when it comes to the transplant wait list, we don't need everyone in America to donate a kidney. You know, we just don't. We need 100,000 and maybe a little bit more to commit to it. And we recognize that's just a sliver of the population.
Right.
But every now and again, you have a conversation with someone, and they really listen. They say, I want to follow up with this, and it's very, very gratifying when that happens. And a lot of them are turned by this idea. So much of living donation, everyone focuses on what you give up, on the organ, the subtraction part of it, the organ that gets taken out, the sacrifice, so to speak, that you make. But so many people miss the positive psychological uplift that comes from knowing that you really mattered to someone else, that when someone really needed you, someone was at the bottom of a pit, someone was frankly dying from kidney failure, you were able to provide the critical ingredient that got them out of that pit and saved their life. And that's not a sort of high and mighty feeling. I mean, I don't walk around any taller than I am. I'm a pretty short guy, so I could probably use a couple inches, but like, it's more it's a self-empowering feeling to know that you had that ability and that you could do it, absorb it, and then move on with your life and just continue to have a better day tomorrow.
Right. And yes, there's minor impacts to your life, but the greater good of what that does to the community, like you said, that should lift you up a little bit more, make you walk a little taller.
Yeah, I could, like I said, I could use it, man.
to say that and such, but the overall impact of a living donor is not that significant. And then you've got that knowledge that, hey, I helped one person, or in your case, you said it was a chain of 8.
Yeah.
And that's the other intriguing thing too, is to be able to start that train or participate in that train where it's not, okay, this one kidney goes to one donor, that's a 1-to-1. I mean, yours was a 1-to-8, which is a significant order of magnitude into people's lives who have been made better through organ donation.
Yeah, it's really overwhelming sometimes when you think about how many people are out there. Dialysis takes place in the dark, in the sense that it's one of those things that happens behind closed doors. You often don't see it, or you're not aware of it. In fact, I have nobody directly in my family that's been on dialysis, which is a gift, and my family's thankful for it. But it also means that when you don't see it, it either becomes less real or it doesn't exist as an issue or a challenge. But when you absorb those numbers, the often cited statistic that 100,000 people are on the transplant wait list, it's probably 3 times that many that might be on the transplant wait list if they were actually properly binned. That's hard to absorb. But with this sort of thing, like you can't let the fact that you can't do everything for everybody stop you from doing something for somebody, and because somebody out there needs it, and that person probably means the world to someone else. I mean, I can feel that in my own life. One of my daughters had a seizure condition for several years. Thankfully, she's aged out of it. But I can remember the early testing, going to those tests, watching her seize, for example, and thinking, what wouldn't I do if I could just lop off an arm or a hand or something, and then that would pay the debt that would give her the health that she needs. And when I learned about the opportunity, frankly, to donate a kidney and in effect to do that for someone else, it was very easy for me to see how revelatory and meaningful that would be from the perspective of a family member that was waiting for that kidney.
Yeah, and you had mentioned earlier, there's about 140,000 plus people on the waiting list right now. The flip side to that is there's only about 40,000 kidney transplants that are done annually. So there's a significant need.
Yes.
And through living donor donation, it would be great to be able to tighten that gap between those in need, those receiving the treatment, and this is a perfect way to help shorten that gap process out there. So I got a question for you. You said 1K or 112k.org.
1k12.org.
1k12.org. Sorry. Right. So is that number 1 and number 12 spelled out? Can you spell out the website for us?
It's numbers and then one letter. So 1K and then the number 12. So 1 as in the number 1, K as in kilo, and then the number 12.org. 1k12.org. Yep.
Perfect. So you kind of give us a little bit of background on what motivated you to do this, to become a living donor. Were there any other factors that helped you say, go from, I think I want to do this, to heck yes, I'm going to do this?
Let's start with, I reached a point in life where I felt like I was approaching the end of my time in the Army. I served for 25 years in the Army. I joined when I was 18. In fact, actually just days ago was my final official last day in the Army.
Well, thank you very much for your service.
I appreciate that. That's kind of you. But I reached this point where I said to myself, I'm probably at the peak in terms of feeling healthy enough to absorb the surgery and then move on very quickly with my life. So like most donors, the process the procedure is not very invasive. I spent one night in the hospital. I was discharged the next day, walked out on my own. Okay. That's very common, and I was walking right away. I started jogging again at day 27, and I took my 2 kids skiing at the 3-month mark. So that was a correct assumption, The other thing is the risk calculation. My best estimates were that it's such a low risk procedure relative to other procedures, right? It's still a surgery. I completely understand that. By the way, I have a PhD, not a medical degree, so that means that all these posters that are surrounding us, I don't know what the heck they mean, which I bet half of these doctors don't either, but they wouldn't cop to that. But my calculation of the risk was that it was a relatively low risk procedure. And when I ran the numbers or compared it to other like activities, my kidney donation, my nephrectomy was less risky than my wife giving birth to our 2 children. It was less, it's about as risky from relative to physical activities as going canoeing. So the risk of death if you go out and get in a canoe is roughly akin to donating a kidney. At the same time, I recognize that I'm part of a family. I'm married with 2 daughters. And I hate to, this is a fairly personal thought, but I genuinely said to myself, if something happens, my wife would do great. She would be able to move on, and she would, of course, I don't, it's not like I have any kind of a death wish or want to leave my family, but I know that the risk was so low. But if that cost was paid, then my family would be okay. That was frankly the hardest part about kidney donation for myself. And that's not uncommon for folks that are members of families, because it's not just the individual on that table, it's the family along with them.
Right.
And so this was probably the least popular decision of mine for my wife ever. We truly had a very large amount of friction over this decision. When I left, we were not on the best, most positive terms. It's not as if I didn't listen to the really hard things that she had to say about it. In effect, when you think about it, it's a certain risk to us, to our family, right, even if it's small, but it's to benefit someone we don't know. And that feels like a violation. And so I'm not unaware of that. At the same time, I just sort of felt at a certain point like it was going to go all right, and that the reward to someone was so great that I felt, honestly, there was so much momentum in my mind that if I didn't carry through with it, I would regret it.
Certainly.
And
I understand the decision process of, making your wife understand why you want to do this, coming on the same page. That's the other important aspect of this too, is to have that support network.
Yeah.
Not only before the donation, but after the donation.
Yeah.
For yourself recovering. And so does your 1K12.org, do they offer support tools or ways for people to connect?
It's a gateway. Yeah. So we have links from that page. For example, so it's devised with the idea that someone who goes to that website is going to have bumped into us over the course of these 12 races, or like targets of opportunity, like right now at this conference, right? And so we've devised that website as a gateway to other resources to learn more about the process, because we know that you're asking a really high bar of someone to just register to be a kidney donor right from the get-go. It's been described to me like it's as if you're asking someone to run a marathon having never run a step in their lives. But you're absolutely right. So The founder of my organization, the National Kidney Donation Organization, is a gentleman who donated when he was 65, and actually his daughter, one of his children said, "I don't know if you should do this, Dad," and that's not uncommon, So we do try to promote the idea that this is, not promote the idea, but acknowledge that this at first glance can be very difficult and scary for people. But once you start to talk to people that have done it, it's not that scary. It's really not. I mean, cripe. I had to drink a glass of red wine to bon voyage my kidney the night before they took it out, and then I had a glass the day after I got out. And I should say, by the way, my family is very supportive at this point, my wife in particular, and I took it as, I put a very positive spin on it in the sense that, well, now I know she doesn't want me to die. She doesn't want to just, she's not in it for the insurance money. But I mean, now we know, this wasn't so bad, and we have moved on, and even though we don't know the recipient, we know the medical team was able to tell me, for example, that the recipient successfully received my kidney, was discharged the same day I was, so I don't know who it is, but I know that at least the initial reception was successful, and that's enough for me. After that, I've done everything I can, and the medical profession has done everything it can too. I know that it's actually a relatively new, so living donors are still relatively few in number. It's still kind of a growing thing, or, of course, direct donations have been around for quite some time, but non-direct donations are growing in number. But what hasn't existed until very recently is an organization of living donors. So NKDO, our organization, like I said, we have 50 donor mentors, but we have almost 3,000 members now. So we have a real organization, and we are excited to fill our role, which is to say that all these medical professionals that you hear in the background, they have medical expertise. Without them, transplantation is not possible, right?
Right.
There are other organizations here at this event that provide information flow to make kidneys go from A to B in a more efficient or better manner. Some of them are shipping companies. The National Kidney Registry, for example, organizes these amazing complex swaps. I think that donors like myself and others provide trust in the system, and that trust is really, really important when you're asking someone to give up a very precious part of their existence. So I know, speaking on behalf of our membership, we're excited to be here. We're excited to be on the team, so to speak, because we think that we can make the team stronger and better.
Excellent. And great. I'm just gobsmacked right now with your story and your testimonial for this. And thank you very much. I do have a couple of little softball questions for you here.
Softballs are good.
But you're a healthy, fit individual.
Yeah.
What's been the best food that you found while here in San Diego or in some of the places where you've done these marathons?
So I'm a native Minnesotan, so we're not known for our food, other than a hot dish.
Come on.
Yeah, but I've lived in Colorado for a number of years. We just moved to Utah, actually. So I'm a huge Mexican food guy. I love a good guacamole or a really good salsa, a really good hot but not too hot salsa. So we hit just honestly, I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but it's right inside the gas lamp district sign. Down here the food is authentic because the people that are making it are authentic, and that makes it breathtakingly good. So anytime I can get a good plate of Mexican food, I'm on board. Yeah.
Wonderful. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you.
I don't have any more questions. Anything else you want to add before we close out the segment?
So, you can't say it enough, but if anyone listening to the sound of my voice right now is interested at all in living kidney donation, visit 1k12.org or my home organization, nkdo.org. We would love to help you on that journey because it's one of the best journeys that you'll ever take in your life.
Perfect. So this has been Matt Kavanaugh, a living kidney donor, sharing his experiences. And I say, people, listen to him.
Yeah.
Take up his personal challenge. Consider living donation. Whether you do it or not, at least take that first step to understand what living donation is. Yes, it carries a risk, but it's a minor risk. And sign up, explore, connect, be a true supporter of it.
Kevin, thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt. Hope you have a great conference.
Thanks.
Enjoy part 5 of our interview series.
Hello and welcome to Transplant Radio. This is Erica Gifford. I am the Events and Education. And I'm sitting here with the CMO of Transplant Genomics, Dr.
Thanks, Erica. So, as Erica mentioned, I'm John Friedman. I'm the Chief Medical Officer of Eurofins Transplant Genomics. I've been here since February 1st of 2022. It's been an exciting run, and I am so excited to be able to be the CMO of a company that really has the best molecular biomarkers on the market.
It's true. And how's your ATC been this year?
It's been spectacular. As you may know, there has been some recent changes in how MolDX, the molecular diagnostics branch of Medicare, is going to reimburse biomarkers. And MolDX has put the onus of provider education on the industry. So we have spent a great deal of time trying to educate various kidney providers on how the new billing article that regulates reimbursement for the molecular biomarkers, which goes into effect on June 30th, will impact their practice.
And how's that going? What is the hottest topic?
It turns out that under the new billing article, the only biomarker that is covered for surveillance in post-transplant kidney patients is TrueGraph, the TGI gene expression profiling. Historically, under the LCD, which came out in early 2021, which was kind of vague. It said that biomarkers may be used for both surveillance and in for-cause scenarios, but it wasn't very specific of what would be covered by what. It turned out that one of the cell-free DNA products that was first to market kind of told everybody you can use us for everything, both surveillance and for-cause. Their validation study, though, was done in a subset of population that was actively rejecting and required the frequency of the test to be monthly for the first 6 months and then at 9 months and at 12 months, so 8 times in the first year. But in reality, they were going to providers and saying, you might even be better off doing it every 2 weeks. And as you can imagine, that led to a dramatic cost to Medicare. So in March of this year, Medicare came out with billing articles that, as a clarification to the original LCD, clearly stated that cell-free DNA can only be used for cause. And as previously stated, gene expression profiling is the only biomarker covered for surveillance. So by being first to market, the cell-free DNA products kind of entrenched a pattern of use, and once you get used to something, it's very hard to teach an old dog new tricks. But when you approach a provider with, here are the facts of the new law, that gene expression profiling, TrueGraph, is the only biomarker covered for surveillance, the light bulb goes off. And, and then how does this impact your practice? Well, since we're using cell-free DNA for surveillance, I guess we're going to have to consider changing. So then we talk about what we believe is a viable algorithm that meets the rigor of the new LCD for both surveillance, if you maintain a negative true graft, and how to approach a positive or not TX true graft. And it has actually been accepted fairly overwhelmingly, which has been very satisfying to transplant genomics.
Definitely, and I bet to the scientific community at large.
Well, we think so, but as I stated, Erica, it is hard to teach an old dog new tricks. And some providers, I don't want to necessarily say have been drinking the Kool-Aid, which is now being spread that the interpretation of the LCD is in the eye of the beholder. One should continue the status quo, which we think is only going to hurt, well, not only, but it will severely hurt the patients, because if you order a non-covered service, which is clearly factually not covered, the patient should be balance billed. And if the order of the test or the industry provider of the test chooses not to balance bill the patient, that's illegal. And one thing that we really pride ourselves in transplant genomics is we have always been a by the book, by the letter of the law company. We refuse to break the law just to sell more product.
Excellent. And a final question for you. What is the most interesting thing you've learned here?
That people actually know what we do. I tell you, Erica, I've been so busy trying to educate the providers that I haven't had a lot of time to attend the scientific sessions. And what I think I learned this year is make sure I put more time away next year when the ATC is in Philadelphia, my hometown. Fly, Eagles, fly, yay, cheesesteaks, can't wait to go, that I'll actually get to go to some of the scientific sessions. But I did learn one other thing. We have a great team. We're all in this together, and any hospital provider, nephrologist, hepatologist who hears this that has questions, please reach out to us. We're more than eager to continue our educational process and really inform you how to better take care of your patients within the confines of the new law.
Fantastic. Well, we will see you in Philly.
You'll see me a lot before then. Take care, Erica. Thanks so much.
Make sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow us on social media to stay up to date on all the latest information. If you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your friends and colleagues to subscribe too. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Podbean, and more. With over 30 years of specialized expertise in infectious disease, immunology, and allergy testing for immunocompromised and critical patients, Eurofins ViraCore is committed to helping medical professionals, transplant teams, and reference labs get results faster when it matters most. ViraCore is passionate about delivering value to our clients by providing timely, actionable information, never losing sight of the connection between the testing we perform and the patients you serve.